The order was strange, almost laughable the first time alien soldiers heard it. If you see a human carrying a medkit, do not engage. Retreat at once. To many, it sounded like a joke. How could a bag meant for bandages and medicine make an army afraid? Yet over time, whispers spread through every barracks, every command post, every battlefield. Veterans lowered their voices when they spoke of it, and younger recruits felt a chill in their bones when they realized it was no joke at all. It began during the Fourth Outer Rim War. Alien legions outnumbered the humans 10-1 on the planet Taraxis. The battlefield was nothing but burning cities and broken plains, black smoke rising into a sky filled with fire. The aliens had the advantage in weapons and numbers, and by all logic, humanity should have been crushed. But something happened. That changed everything. An alien squad watched it first. They saw a human soldier sprint across the chaos, not firing his weapon, but dragging a heavy green medkit bag. Plasma bolts hissed past him, explosions shook the ground, but he didn't. Stop! He slid down beside a fallen comrade, patched wounds with quick, brutal efficiency, and injected something into his veins. Moments later, the soldier who should have been dead rose again. His eyes burned with fury, his body pushed forward, and he charged back into the fight, as if death had only made him stronger. The aliens thought it was luck. They fired again. That same human was shot, burned, and thrown into the dirt, but once more the medic was there, kneeling, working fast, his hands steady even as the ground shook around him. Again the fallen soldier stood. Again he fought. The squad panicked. They fired at both humans this time, desperate to end it. But the medic moved like a shield, dragging his comrade behind cover, refusing to fall even as plasma fire hammered around him. And when he patched the soldier up for the third time, something terrifying spread through the alien ranks. The feeling that they weren't fighting men, but ghosts. By the end of that battle, the aliens withdrew, not because they lacked weapons, but because fear spread faster than orders. They had killed the same human 3 times, yet he kept rising. The whispers began that night. Do not fight when the medkit is on the field. At first, commanders refused to believe. They called it cowardice. But the reports kept coming, each one darker than the last. On planet after planet, the pattern repeated. A medic would appear, hauling that bag with the red cross, and the tide of battle shifted. Soldiers who should have been dead kept fighting. Squads that should have been erased held the line. Armies that should have broken instead grew stronger. For aliens, the medkit became a symbol of horror. It was no longer seen as medicine. It was resurrection, defiance, the refusal of humans to die. What terrified them most was not that humans healed quickly. It was that they fought harder each time they returned. Wounds became fuel for their rage. Scars became reminders of why they refused to fall. A wounded human was dangerous. A wounded human healed by a medic was unstoppable. In dim mess halls, alien soldiers whispered of watching whole squads rise again from what should have been graves. They spoke of medics carrying wounded on their backs while firing with one hand, never slowing down. They spoke of battles where the dead themselves seemed to rise, not because of miracles, but because humans refused to leave one another behind. And so, the order spread through the highest chains of command. If you see a human with a medkit, retreat. Do not engage. Do not fight. It became doctrine. Alien recruits were trained with it as law. Veterans said nothing, only nodded grimly when asked why. No alien leader dared admit it out loud, but they all knew. The medkit was not just a bag. It was the reason human armies could not be broken. Now every battlefield held the same whisper. Commanders shouted over comms, their voices tight with fear. Avoid the medics. Do not engage the medics. Run if you must. And every alien soldier who heard those words felt the same chill, because by then they understood. A rifle in human hands was dangerous. A grenade was worse. But the most terrifying weapon humanity had ever carried into war was not a gun or a bomb. It was the Medkit. The order had spread across the alien fleets like wildfire. Retreat if a human carries a medkit. But not everyone believed it. Pride, arrogance, and the thirst for glory made some commanders mock the warning. To them, humans were still the youngest species on the galactic stage, too weak to match ancient empires with centuries of war behind them. So when the Fifth Legion was sent to pacify a human colony on the planet Dravus, its commander scoffed at the idea. A bag of medicine, fear of bandages. What cowardly superstition is this? He sneered. His soldiers laughed with him, their voices echoing through the steel halls of their warships. None of them knew they were about to be the ones remembered in whispers. The battle began at dawn. The skies above Dravus burned with fire as alien ships pounded the surface, their cannons turning buildings into ash. Armored divisions marched across the plains, confident in their superiority. Against them stood a small human defense force, outnumbered and outgunned. The aliens charged forward, expecting an easy victory. At first, it looked as though they were right. Human soldiers fell under the onslaught, explosions tearing craters into the ground. Alien rifles blazed with plasma, filling the air with green light. The humans held their ground stubbornly, but their lines began to crack. Then, through the smoke and fire, the aliens saw him. A single human soldier sprinted across the battlefield, not with a rifle raised, but with a green medkit strapped to his back. Plasma bolts screamed past him, dirt exploded under his boots, but he never slowed. He dropped to his knees, beside a wounded comrade, hands moving with speed that seemed impossible. The wounded soldier gasped, blood staining his armor. The aliens aimed, certain they would finish them both. But before their shots landed, the medic was done. The wounded man's chest rose again, his eyes snapped open, and he stood, rifle in hand, fury in his gaze. The aliens faltered. That soldier had been seconds from death. Now he was alive, fighting harder than before. The commander barked orders, "Kill the medic, now!" Dozens of rifles locked onto the running figure. Plasma fire rained down, engulfing him in a storm of green light. The ground shook. Smoke and dust swallowed him. For a moment, the aliens cheered. Surely no one could survive that. But when the smoke cleared, the medic was still there. His armor scorched, his face streaked with ash, but his hands steady, his eyes unbroken. And beside him, another wounded soldier rose again, patched, armed, and ready to fight. The alien line wavered. Soldiers glanced at one another in disbelief. The humans they had killed were standing again, angrier, faster, deadlier. Then it happened again. A plasma strike dropped two humans. The medic reached them, his movements precise, fearless, unstoppable. Seconds later, those soldiers stood again, screaming battle cries, charging into the alien front. The aliens panicked. "It's the medkit!" one shouted, his voice shrill with terror. "He makes them rise again." Blinded by pride, the commander refused to retreat. He ordered his troops forward, demanded they crush the medic with overwhelming force. The aliens advanced in a wall of fire, hundreds strong. But the more they killed, the more the medic worked, the more the dead refused to stay down. Soon it no longer felt like a battle. It felt like a nightmare. The aliens fired until their rifles overheated, until their cannons smoked, until their voices cracked from shouting. But the humans never stayed down. Every time they thought they had broken the medic appeared. Every time they celebrated a kill, the soldier rose again, patched, healed, unstoppable. The tide turned. What began as a retreat for humans became a counterattack. Alien soldiers who once mocked the idea of fearing a medkit now felt their courage crumble. Their weapons were useless against enemies who refused to die. The commander tried to rally them, but fear spread faster than his orders. Soldiers broke rank, throwing down their rifles, fleeing into the smoking ruins. Entire squads abandoned the battlefield, their eyes wide with terror, whispering the same words over and over. "Do not fight the medics. Do not fight the medics." By dusk, the Fifth Legion was shattered, not by numbers, not by firepower, but by a single human with a medkit who refused to let his brothers fall. When the survivors crawled back to their ships, their commander silent and broken, the order became law. From that day forward, no alien dared question it again. If a human carried a medkit, you did not fight, you ran. The battle on Dravus should have been forgotten, just another skirmish in a long war. But it wasn't. Survivors carried the story back with them, voices shaking as they told commanders what they had seen, soldiers who refused to stay dead, enemies who rose again and again, a medic with a bag of supplies who changed the entire tide of battle. At first, alien high councils dismissed it as an excuse for failure. Cowardice, one general spat. They ran because they lost their nerve. But then came the reports from other fronts, different planets, different armies, different commanders. Yet every account had the same words whispered between the lines. The human medics are the ones to fear. Whispers became warnings, warnings became orders. And soon, across the galaxy, a strange doctrine was written into battle manuals. If you see a human with a medkit, retreat. It wasn't just the victories that frightened alien commanders, it was the pattern, again and again, in battles where humans should have been destroyed. The same thing happened. Wounded men and women rose from the dirt, bleeding one moment, firing the next. Lines that should have broken held longer than logic allowed. Squads that should have been erased turned into unkillable phantoms. In alien barracks, young recruits sat in silence as veterans told grim stories. They spoke of firefights where they shot the same human soldier 3 times, 4 times, only to watch him rise again, patched up by steady hands that never trembled. They spoke of medics carrying wounded on their backs, dragging them through fire while still firing with one hand, never slowing down. They spoke of hopeless moments where human lines should have collapsed, but didn't. What terrified them wasn't just survival. It was the fury that followed. Humans who returned from the brink fought with something more than training, something deeper. Each scar made them stronger. Each wound lit a fire in their eyes. And the medics kept that fire burning. Across mess halls and bunkers, one phrase echoed like a curse. The medkit makes them unstoppable. Commanders began to notice changes in their troops. When the cry went out that a medic had entered the fight, soldiers grew restless. Some fired wildly, panic in their eyes. Others broke formation, retreating before the enemy even reached them. The sight of the green bag with its red cross became as terrifying as the roar of tanks. Entire strategies shifted. Alien generals tried to target medics first, pouring fire onto them. But the medics were different from ordinary healers. They moved like ghosts, slipping between explosions, dragging the wounded back to their feet while under heavy fire. Killing was nearly impossible, and the more the enemy tried, the more openings they gave to human soldiers. The fear spread upward too. Councils debated in secrecy, terrified of what this meant for the balance of power. If humans could keep their soldiers in the fight longer than any other species, if they could turn hopeless battles into victories with nothing but grit and medicine, then how long before they became more than just survivors? How long before they became conquerors? On one mining world, an alien officer made the mistake of ignoring the order. His troops engaged a small human squad even after spotting a medic. Hours later, only scraps of armor and broken rifles were found in the dust. The officer's name was erased from records, but the story was not. It was whispered in every garrison. He fought the medkit and died for it. The fear reached its peak during the siege of Kalthor. The aliens had humans cornered, their defenses shattered, ammunition low. Victory seemed certain. But when a single medic appeared on the field, dragging his kit through smoke and blood, the entire battle turned. Wounded men and women rose from the rubble, rallying to him. The aliens fought harder, desperate to end it, but the humans would not stay down. By nightfall, the siege had failed. Kalthor remained in human hands. After that, the doctrine became law. The order was spoken without hesitation. If you see the medkit, retreat. It was no longer cowardice, it was survival. And in the shadows of their war rooms, alien commanders admitted a truth they would never speak aloud. The humans had turned medicine into a weapon, and their medics were the deadliest soldiers in the galaxy. The fear of human medics had spread so far that even children of alien worlds whispered about them in bedtime stories. Generals barked the order again and again. If you see the medkit, you retreat. It was a command carved into every soldier's training, but fear has enemies too, pride and arrogance. The Zaltha Dominion was one of the oldest empires in the galaxy, its armies forged over centuries of conquest. To their high command, the fear of medkits was nothing more than weakness. Their officers spat at the doctrine, calling it superstition. Their emperor declared, "We will prove to the galaxy that humans are not immortal. Their medics are flesh and blood, and flesh can be crushed." And so the Dominion gathered an army so vast that the skies darkened with their ships. They chose the world of Varos, a barren desert where a small human garrison had dug into the cliffs. The humans numbered less than 1,000. Against them marched 40,000 alien soldiers, armored and armed with the best the Dominion had ever built. The alien commanders laughed as they planned. "Even if they bring 10 medics, they will fall. We will crush their myth and scatter their legend." At dawn, the Dominion attacked. Tanks rolled across the sand, their cannons shaking the cliffs. Waves of infantry stormed forward, banners high, weapons glowing. From the ridges, humans returned fire, disciplined but hopelessly outnumbered. Dust and smoke swallowed the battlefield, and the sky rumbled with the roar of warships. The aliens cheered as the human line began to crack. Soldiers fell, positions collapsed, and the defenders retreated deeper into the rocks. The Dominion commander raised his fist in triumph, convinced the legend of the medkit would die that day. Then he saw it. Through the smoke, a single figure emerged, sprinting across the sand with a green bag strapped to his back. The red cross shone even through the haze. He reached a fallen soldier, knelt, and his hands moved quickly, skillful and steady. Seconds later, the soldier rose again, his rifle blazing, his voice screaming a battle cry. The commander's smile faded. His soldiers hesitated, and then, as more humans fell, the medic moved again. Another soldier stood, then another. The Dominion troops fired wildly, desperate to cut him down. Plasma bolts scorched the sand, explosions erupted around him, but the medic never stopped. His armor smoked, his body burned, yet he kept moving. Every time he knelt, another soldier stood, fury in their eyes, strength renewed. Soon the human line was alive again. Men and women who should have been corpses were firing from the cliffs, pouring destruction into the Dominion ranks. The commander roared, "Ignore the soldiers, kill the medic." Hundreds of rifles turned on the running figure. A storm of fire rained down. The ground shook. The sky split with heat. But when the smoke cleared, the medic was still there, bloodied but unbroken, hauling another wounded soldier to his feet. Fear rippled through the Dominion army. The front lines began to falter. Soldiers looked at one another, whispering the forbidden words, "The medkit is here." The humans pressed their advantage. They fought like demons, refusing to fall, rising again and again. Every scar made them stronger. Every wound became another reason to fight, and with the medic among them, they could not be stopped. By nightfall, the Dominion had lost half its force. Their tanks burned in the sand, their infantry scattered, their warships retreating to orbit. The humans, still less than 1,000, stood bloodied but alive. The Dominion commander sat in his bunker, his pride shattered. He had ignored the order. He had mocked the fear, and now his great army lay in ruins. His soldiers whispered behind him, refusing to meet his eyes. They knew the truth. The galaxy had been right all along. The order was not weakness. It was survival. From that day, the Dominion joined the others. Their soldiers learned to fear the sight of the Red Cross. Their commanders gave the same order their emperor once mocked. If you see the medkit, do not fight, do not test them. Retreat. And so the legend of the human medics did not die on Veros. It grew, it became unshakable, because an entire empire had tried to break it and failed. The desert world of Veros had burned. The Dominion's proud legions were broken, their tanks turned to husks, their banners lying in the sand. Less than 1,000 humans had held against 40,000. Not because they had more weapons, not because they had greater numbers, but because of one green bag carried on the back of a medic who refused to stop running. The story spread faster than fire in dry grass. Across outposts and warships, alien soldiers whispered the same thing. We fought the medkit, and we lost. No one laughed anymore. The old arrogance was gone. In its place was something far more dangerous: fear. Councils tried to silence it. Commanders tried to punish soldiers who spoke of it. But the fear could not be killed. Even recruits who had never seen battle knew the order by heart. If you see a human with a medkit, retreat. The galaxy began to understand what humans already knew. The medkit was never just about bandages and medicine. It was about defiance. It was about survival. It was about refusing to let death claim even one more soldier when the fight was not yet finished. Reports told of alien units firing until their weapons melted, only to watch the same humans rise again and again. They told of soldiers charging with half their bodies patched in rough bandages, fighting harder after every wound. They told of medics dragging comrades through fire, standing against tanks with nothing but willpower, refusing to leave anyone behind. It became clear to every commander, a human with a medkit was not only saving lives, he was multiplying an army. Every wound healed was another fighter back on the line. Every soldier returned meant more fire, more courage, more fury. Battles that should have been lost became victories, and victories became legends. On one broadcast intercepted across dozens of systems, an alien officer spoke in a trembling voice. I have faced every weapon in this galaxy. Cannons, starships, war beasts. None compare to the terror of seeing a human medic run through fire. For when he arrives, the dead themselves seem to rise. The words echoed everywhere. Even alien civilians began to ask their leaders hard questions. If humans can survive what kills others, if they can rise again and again, then what happens when they stop defending and start attacking? It was not just about medics anymore. It was about what the medkit represented. Humanity had shown the galaxy something no weapon could match: the strength to endure, the will to stand, the refusal to fall. In secret councils, some empires debated alliances instead of wars. Better to fight beside them than against them, one elder said. Others argued for extermination. If they can do this now, what will they become in 100 years? But none could ignore the truth. The medkit had become a symbol, and symbols are harder to destroy than armies. On Earth, humans did not see themselves as legends. To them, medics were simply men and women who carried their brothers through battle. They did not know that across the stars, alien soldiers shivered at the very thought of the Red Cross. Colonel Reeves knew. She had seen it in their eyes, seen entire armies hesitate the moment a medic appeared. She understood that what terrified them was not just the healing, it was the message. Humans would not abandon each other. They would not leave the wounded behind. And that kind of loyalty turned ordinary soldiers into something immortal. Standing on the cliffs after Veros, Reeves looked at her medic. His armor was black with scorch marks, his face lined with exhaustion, his hands still shaking from endless hours of work. And yet, when another soldier staggered forward, wounded and bleeding, he opened his bag again without hesitation. Reeves thought then of the council's whispering, the soldiers fleeing, the empires trembling. She spoke quietly, but her words carried farther than she knew. They can order their troops to run from us, but one day they will learn they cannot run forever. That line became the final whisper, the one that carried across every star system. The galaxy finally understood why the medkit was feared more than any rifle or cannon. It was not the bag, it was not the supplies. It was the spirit of humanity itself, unyielding, unbreakable, unstoppable. And from that day forward, every alien soldier who saw the flash of red on the battlefield remembered the order and obeyed without question. Run. The medkit is here.